Hey, how's it going? I just wanted to talk a little bit because some things that I've been seeing in my videos that I watch that probably, well, a lot of other people do, I know that, on the spiritual teachings and things, and I've been talking for a while now about the Galactic Federation of Light. And then they have I just call it a sibling channel called Chosen Chronicles. And I've known of the existence in this context of these particular beings for like a decade now. And so the whole time it has been like fulfilling and joyful to know about them and hear what they have to say, and so much of it just resonates so true with me. But there's always been one thing about it that I have had a hard time with, and it's that let me put it this way: the QAnons have traditionally really been like in love with, 100% behind with, thought that this guy was just a paragon of people and all kinds of attributes that I would attribute to a person, but not him. And so other people see him as I see him, and those are his followers because they are like him or emulate his ways, but not all of them. Not everyone is a deplorable, you know, just to use a term that has been used to describe them. And by the way, I don't think when the person made that remark, they had a clue about what I kind of saw right away, which was, I don't agree with everything they say, but I mean, a lot of stuff they say I can agree with, and I don't think it's crazy. But things that at the same time everybody else might think was crazy, like believing that extraterrestrials are real. Oh, I guess they don't like that, so I forgot. So visitors, they don't, they you know, believe in them and talk about them and talk about talking to them, and you know, that type of thing flares off into all kinds of directions. History, aerospace, scientists, historical researchers, like ancient religious stuff. For I feel like they mainly focus on like Israel, Middle East countries, like gee, can you name one? Not really. Palestine, Syria, Turkey, like, oh, I don't know about Turkey, but Syria, just all of these Muslim countries that, like Iraq, and those countries pretty much are the ones that I'm talking about, that they seem to focus on. And then there's been like a lot of ancient discoveries there, and like information that has been alleged to have been found or has been, you know, briefly shown to like the press and then just disappears and no one talks about it anymore. And it's like there's a prohibition on it, like online or something, or it just disappears in such a way that you're like, did something happen that they don't want to tell us about it? Like, is it bad? I don't know. Like, that's kind of my impression of things sometimes. So, I mean, and in all of those things are of interest to me and also a lot of other people. So I just kind of feel like a lot of factors other than their QAnonness played into them being like unpopular with the left and kind of ridiculed because on top of the QAnon stuff, they're like right-wing people, conservative on the right people, and there's a lot of shades of that. I learned from the short time that I spent online interacting with them. But the reason why I'm talking about them and that whole thing I said is because I was on Blue Sky and then I saw like a post within a post, like a picture in picture I call it, and excuse me, it was a repost, and it said, I know who reposted it. They're like famous, so I don't really want to mention their name. But you can find them on Blue Sky. And so the other person who got reposted, I wasn't familiar with the name and I don't remember what it was, but I do remember what they said, which was, you know, QAnon might have been right, or a little bit right, or something along those lines. Something more along the lines of they may have been a little bit right. And that is something that I have maintained for a long time. And it's like a dichotomy. Once it hits you, like I said, this is not new to me, so it's not like a shock to my system. And I've integrated it a long time ago, but this is new to people. And so, meanwhile, right now, currently, I have been like, I don't post their stuff a lot because it's weird. It's like it's online, so it's out there, like it's kind of beyond their control with what happens once they do that. But they'll say, like, hear them all the time saying, be sure and share and like and all of that. Like, they really are not, they're like, don't talk about this, which is weird. But I also get it because it is a lot for people to accept, especially if they just saw the whole concept, like you don't see the whole concept the first time, but you see enough to where it like enters through a space, a crack, in your, I guess, belief system, or just like what you're accustomed to seeing and taking as this is the reality. And then something like this comes along where, like, yes, visitors from off-world are real, and they've been acquainted with our people for a long time, which art will show you, like, going back as far as the first arts on, like, cave walls and on the ground and mountainsides, and just, some things survive today that are, like, that's so old I don't really know what it means, but it's really striking in some way. Like, it hits some sort of dormant part of us. It resonates. So I've been having a real hard time for a while with the American president being, or the current one, Trump, being presented as like this, like, guy that's gonna herald all of this great stuff. But the thing is like, he's so funny. From the start, he's been all drain the swamp, like you're gonna find something bad there, on the ground, in the silt, in the, nasty, stinky mud. And that is a thing, for real. And so, I've always said, you're gonna find him there. Sure enough, he's exposed a lot of stuff. You don't see it as something he intentionally is doing. Like, when things get exposed by him, it's not in a way that it's like it's by accident a lot of times, like, he's definitely saying stuff and doing all kinds of things and making all kinds of motion and noise, but there's also like this other thing that's like, yeah, none of that's really real. Like, the truest thing about him is that he openly lies. And so, reconciling that with, the idea that him saying something like, Canada's going to be the 51st state, or we're going to take Greenland, and then they'll come out with a video, and it'll have like a thumbnail or a title card, and it'll say, kind of what it's going to be talking about. And they do talk about those things, and then it like totally gets off that subject and starts talking about spiritual stuff. Because all of that's going on, all of this upheaval, like, violence and demonstrations and even loss of life is part of something spiritual that is happening to all of us. And they often talk about integration, which I, understand pretty well. Like, I've talked about it, I've written about it and published about it. So maybe what I don't mention is that it's not easy. So, having said all of that, I've been having problems integrating these two ideas that I can intellectually kind of understand. Well, I can intellectually understand and kind of accept mostly, but like grudgingly, like I don't want it, I don't like it, I don't want it. But then, other things they talk about in the videos is, changes that we're going through and like the ways that we're affected and changed by like the atmospheric elements and astrological, cosmological things happening, astronomical, I mean, and how we're affected by them, and just lots of stuff. And so they'll say that like you're gonna start feeling this way, or they don't. It's not absolute. Like it never comes off like that. They're like, you may be dreaming extra vividly or a lot, or just all of a sudden things like occurring to you and all of a sudden making sense, and synchronicities and new abilities and talents and things. And so recently they started talking about integration, and I should say I watched one recently because I haven't been watching them because there's just like a lot going on in the world, and then they're coming out and with videos like agreeing with Trump and going like, there's one that I think came out yesterday, and it's like the Canada and the United States merger. And I'm like, people are not trying to hear that. I'm barely trying to hear it because in Greenland, I got real mad when I heard this. When I heard them saying this, but the Greenland was like, the indigenous people in Greenland, they were like, we're a sovereign state, we're a sovereign people. Like, you can't take our land. And I'm sure they were thinking of the United States. Like, the indigenous people were not really able, I mean, they get to still live here, but it's not like their land anymore. And so the video that came out from the GFL station channel was talking about, like, it seemed like they were kind of irritated that Denmark and Greenland were making claims on their, land, that they were indigenous people. And then I guess, I don't know, like Denmark, those people are not indigenous to that place? I suppose I need to look that up, because I thought all of those Scandinavians were there, and then like the one person of the indigenous people of Greenland, I don't even know what they're called, so bad on me, but she was like she could have been a Native American, or an indigenous American. She was darker than me, dark eyes, dark hair, back in a braid, looked long, just looked Indian or Native American. You know what I'm trying to say. Saying it all badly, but you know what I'm trying to say. And so I feel like that imposition, pain, incursion, turn of events. Okay. My stomach is trying to have a turn of events. Deep breath. You gotta breathe. Because all of this stuff is distressful. Is that a word? So what I'm getting at is, let me just make sure I'm clear on what I was just saying. The indigenous people of Denmark and Greenland were going, nobody can take this from us. It's ours, like, we'll fight you. And then the GFL video was, like I said, sounded kind of irritated, and their thing was like, nothing belongs to any of you. And that kind of made me mad. But then, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days later, stuff in the stars happened. Other physical things happened. There's like moons, full. I think today is the full moon. Or yesterday, since it's after 12 a.m. But, the passage of time, I have been able to further integrate, like, okay, I see what you're saying. But basically saying that, like, I hope this goes by the same turn. Like, no one owns where they are or anything of this planet. We're part of it, but we really have gone a little far when we've gotten to the point where we're all, I'm going to buy that planet. So, planet? Don't get ahead of yourself, me. What do you say? I'm going to buy that nation. So, that's been discussed by Trump, and so the thing is like, he could be acting exactly how he's acting, and that's what is required for people to pay attention and see, I guess, the absurdity of going, I'm going to go buy this from you so that, like, I can take away, centuries worth of sovereignty by writing you a check. Like, it's something for us to look at rather than getting outraged by, and seeing, like, there's more going on here, because I think he's 100% genuine. I don't think he's putting on an act. He may have met with some emissary from the visitors, but I heard somewhere or saw something that said that he's afraid of them. So he is just another president, and it's like, I'm not going to listen to your message, which is, stop fighting everybody, and, oh, by the way, you don't own the whole earth that you can go buy and sell, which I think there's that little message that's sort of under the layer. So that is kind of about what I wanted to say about that. And then there's a situation here in the United States that I'm not sure many people are even clocking is happening, because it's part of the population that is sort of taken for granted and kind of, it's black people, but, it could be any black or brown race, because we're always the problem. Like, we always make everything terrible, and it's like, this whole narrative that is, I think, bought by a lot of people, but it's clueless, because how could you accept, like, a whole narrative be true of a whole race of people and not think that you are also part of a whole race of people, and, like, are you all like you? Like, that's crazy talk, silly people. So, but here's the thing, like, while this, like, ICE protests are going on. You're not going to see, or the No Kings rallies. Sorry, I blanked out for a second. Or the No Kings rallies. I really hadn't been looking, but I started to look, and you're not going to see a whole lot of darker complected faces. Like, there's not very many black and brown people in those crowds. And that's not really a surprise to me. I am not there. I understand the reasons, which I'm going to explain in a second, why the black people you're not going to find very interested in all of this. You know, not like I said, not in attendance in large numbers. And it's not that, you know, I'm not going to say we, I'm not going to speak for all of us, but it's what I feel, and I think it's, and I've heard enough other black people say it to know that, like, yes, it's something that maybe I could go a little with we on, and it's that all of this cruelty on the hands of these authorities, at the hands of the authorities on everybody. Hi, been there, done that in our community. That's what I'm saying, is probably why you're not seeing the black people especially like too upset about it, you know. And I don't think it should be misunderstood that they're not upset about it. They're just not as upset about it. They're not like jumping out of their skin, because this has been like a common condition. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard someone talk about parents giving their black sons the talk. I think they should give it to everybody, because, you know, once it starts getting crazy, they don't care what gender you are. You're just the wrong color and stuff. So, but the talk refers to how dangerous it can be to just be out in the world and black and like alone possibly, or in the wrong place and wrong time and wrong people you run into, and bad things can happen. And so, you know, when a black child disappears or is kidnapped, it is a struggle to get their face and name out there where, you know, like every white kid for the past 20 years, like maybe you forgot the name, but if you're reminded, you'll be like, ding, oh yeah, I remember that, because there's publicity about what's happened to them, and, you know, it's really emotional, and then I think the news, you know, whips everybody up into even more emotion, but you're just not going to get the same kind of exposure when you're the parent of a black child. Like, you don't even know how many are gone unless you go look, or you know, I don't know. Like, unless you're part of, like, the black community and paying attention to, like, stuff black people pay attention to. That's where you're gonna know. Or you know, I'm old, so I'm forgetting that now there's the internet. So that doesn't make it like it's all better or something. Like, it's still underreported. And so I can understand intellectually why people would be like, yeah, I'm not, you know, like, yeah, that's a bummer. Sorry about your kid. Like, sorry, that all just came out. I don't have children. That, I just realized that sounded really harsh and terrible, but I don't think I'm far off from the feeling, because, you know, there's been plenty of historical precedent for the lack of care for the black community that exists. So that is, but okay, so the reason I bring that up is because I was saying online that I feel like all at once, all kinds of stuff we have had to deal with that we just haven't as a society in the United States is just all coming up for review at the same time. And so that little avenue of, like, societal neglect to the black community, and then also being the scapegoat and the whipping boy and the hanging boy, you know what I'm saying? Or just, we've just been treated horribly, and it's not just in this country, it's historical, and it's like just about every country in the world has had a turn at like subjugating. So I don't want to get all like hung up on stuff, because I'm not. Like, it's just part of everything that happens, but everything that happens we're meant to get something out of, and it's probably not anger, or at least not anger for like hundreds of years. And so, and don't think that I'm neglecting to mention the indigenous American people, like of the United States areas, or God, even South America, they don't get treated very well. So I am not forgetting them. I'm just one thing at a time. So I feel like I'm seeing in real time those matters not being like addressed, like Civil War this or civil rights that. God, we get into a lot of problems when stuff gets civil. We kind of take a beating. But I don't know that it's going to be as specific as all that, but I think what will happen, and is happening actually, is the turning of events that are happening right now are going to result in, like, you know, bringing us all together, regardless of who we are and what we look like or sound like. I think, like, all of those matters are going to become moot because of things that are going to happen and are in the process of happening. And I have all of this realization all of a sudden because the past, I don't know, 4 days I've just been like super meditating person, and really just like speaking to like my higher self, or the guides and masters that are out there listening. All you gotta do is 1-800, hey, I need some help. Get somebody help. And it may, you know, you're not gonna get like a phone call back probably, or, you know, you're gonna get a much more subtle form of an answer, or a realization, or a nudge, or feeling to do something in a different way. And I think what's been happening with all of the stuff that I have been like badly naming that's affecting us collectively on the planet has been like a softening of all of the things that we kind of were throwing up between ourselves and everything other, like from personal, you know, stuff with emotions and our family, job, whatever, you know, personal stuff, or just the rest of the world that you're not so personal with, and that kind of has traditionally run into problems. But I feel like the internal changes that have been being done to us have just been like a softening in our ability and the way that we typically have dealt with these unmet matters between men and women, the LGBTQ plus community and everybody else, and vegetarians and vegans and carnivores, and, you know, climate people and anti-climate people and flat earthers and round earthers. It's like, everything at once. So, but, you know, we've kind of been building up to this for a long time. And I don't mean like one lifetime. I mean the lifetimes of many, many people. And I think that's why things take so long. Like, realization has to happen, and then people have to get to the point where they're realizing stuff. And that takes time. And you know, every single person is affected by their upbringing and the surroundings of their upbringing, and you know, their life has to happen, and then all of the people that like come across their life have to happen. Like that's a, if you think of that on the term of every single person on this planet, oh, and all of the animals, and like the rocks and the air and the water and the fire, there's a lot of stuff that has to kind of cohere for, you know, like one thing to happen, I guess. You know, but that's probably a really oversimplified version of things, but so that complexity being the case, we get help, and we need help, but we also need to learn to that we can ask for that help from non-traditional sources that we are not like visibly able to say, hey, come over here and shake my hand physically, because like I said, you're gonna get an answer, it'll be more subtle. And I think something else that we've been I want to say gifted with, because we needed help from all of these outer subtle forces to make ourselves viable to receive the information. Like, we have had like a way of thinking implemented on us over generations, and it's like hard to break free. It's hard to break free of programming. I don't think that's a secret. Like, we have a lot of precedent with cults. It's been recorded, it's been dramatized, you know, like, we, I guess, are herd animals, even down to thought. That's not an insult. I could as easily has used the word hive. We're a collective. Like, that's an accepted way to say it, and it's kind of all of the same thing. The same way to say the same thing. Or different ways to say the same thing. Suffering psychopath. Okay, so, that's it. I am going to go. Now I have a third eye headache. I really do. And also I'm coincidentally, I'm doing something else also right now at the same time that I need to go attend to. So thank you for your attention. Oh, please look at my signs so I can disclaim my words. You know, you certainly can make your... Sorry about that. You certainly can make your own decisions about everything. If you are here to listen, thanks. Really appreciate it. Thank you and good night.